Happy Saturday, everyone. What is going on? We are here. We got a big podcast this week. Lots of news to get into. Lots of stuff kind of like last week. Really similar to last week anyway, because it's a really news-heavy podcast today. So we're going to be testing out kind of like a new format here, just trying to get an idea of how this podcast is going to look when I move into my new home in a few weeks. So we're just testing some things out here for today and maybe going to run these weekly podcasts a little bit differently. And we're going to have some big changes coming to the podcast starting in the fall in terms of formatting. And we're going to let you guys pick and decide a lot of the stories and the topics that we discuss. These are going to be longer podcasts. So I'm going to have a lot more time to do them. So I'm kind of playing around with that right now as we finalize the final 3 or 4 Saturday podcasts with, with this current background behind me. And then we're going to be moving on to another place. But let me just get my little stuff organized here, my camera all straight and whatnot. And we are here with what should be a pretty fun podcast tonight because we have some cool stuff to get into. But in terms of the wrestling results, SmackDown shit the bed again last night. Just not a good show in my estimation. I thought it was really boring. I thought Dynamite was slightly better. Maybe not slightly better, maybe a little bit more better, but Dynamite wasn't the greatest show either. But I did enjoy it probably more than SmackDown, at least this week. Of course, we have a lot of Monday Night Raw news to get into as well. We were here for the review on Monday, and we have a big update this Monday as it relates to Naomi. So we'll be getting into all of that and what her future might be. And we're also going to be getting into a lot of the top news stories of the week, including a lot of the stuff surrounding WWE and TNA and AEW and a lot of the counter-programming that's been going on. Also, the big John Cena and Brock Lesnar match rumored for September on a PLE that doesn't even have a name yet. Some information on what they were trying to do in December to counter-program World's End. And, they're potentially WWE's potentially buying and purchasing of TNA in the future, or at the very least, helping them secure a TV deal. So we're going to talk about all of that, report from John Alba, some comments from Meltzer, and kind of what's going on there. In addition to that, we'll talk about the latest with Karrion Kross, as he was a guest on Ariel Helwani's show this week to shed some light on his WWE departure, and basically offered some shoot comments on how he left, but still, even with all of that, the whole situation is still real weird. You know what I mean? So we're going to kind of talk about that and what the future could hold there for Kross and WWE and even Scarlett and their futures in general. We'll talk a little bit about Vince McMahon, who, as we know, was interviewed by TMZ for the big Hulk Hogan documentary that they released, and he did have some comments on Hogan's past and the 10 Bell Salute tribute that WWE did. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, we have some news on where that WWE tape library might end up, and I'm really liking the way it's sounding. Also, we've got a handful of AEW news, tidbits, signings, update on Britt Baker, that type of thing. We have a Triple Mania later tonight, which is a big one. It's about 80% full of WWE talent, so we'll preview that card tonight. Also, TNA had their Emergence show last night. We'll discuss that. Like I said, a little recap of SmackDown and Dynamite as well. And we will preview the cards as they stand right now for Clash in Paris and Forbidden Door. Clash in Paris is struggling. They just have the big title match and the Cena versus Logan Paul match. We'll learn more about the women's title match after Monday. But right now, really only 2 matches set for Clash in Paris, which is coming up. And then for Forbidden Door, the card is looking pretty damn stacked. That's going to be a good one coming up in a couple of weeks. So, anyway, happy Saturday. Thank you guys so much for being here. We got a nice big 2-hour chunk to get this podcast done this week, and looking forward to it. Also going to let you guys know what to expect from us tomorrow and Monday here on the channel. But before we do that, let me just do a quick little hello to everyone and get myself resituated here. All right, there we're good there. You guys can hear me and whatnot. My camera is a little crooked, and it's driving me fucking crazy. I'm going to fix that for the next episode, but anyway, just feels like a little off, and it drives me nuts. But anyway, let's get into some shout outs and whatnot, and then I'm going to let you guys know what big watch along I have selected for tomorrow. You might be surprised for those of you who have not checked my YouTube page. Anyway, let's say hello to Spartan Sprinkles, who was in here before we even went live with the $5. Thank you for that. MFTs obviously stands for motherfucking Tongans, right? They called Tama the MFT when he was the only one who debuted. My family tree doesn't work in context. Yeah, they did call Tama MFT. Yeah, so now it's MFTs. It's like not my family trees. You know, most family trees is just one tree. I mean, it branches off, but you don't got like multiple trees. Maybe you do. I don't know. MFTs doesn't really sound right. My family trees doesn't sound right. I like your idea. Motherfucking Tongans. Works for me. Good to see Zane G, William Cullen. We got Tatanani in the house. Melissa is here. Gilbert Arbalo. We got Colin Wright dropping in too. Hi, all. I started a new job, IT, on Monday. Right on. Good luck, man. Good luck with the new job. I know how that can be. Wishing you all the best, Colin. Good to see Double UK. We got Cambrian Gillies in here. We got Nick Steele. Nick Steele in the house. We got Nick Musser as well. David Brown, Damian Drain, Steve Jacobson. Zane G, I got you already. Matos 1489, Crazy J is here. Lou Thompson, Denny Downbad, and Luke McAllister dropping in $10 for us. Thank you for that, my friend. What's up, Greg? All set to attend Dynamite in Glasgow, then Forbidden Door in London. Wasn't sure if Will Ospreay would compete, let alone in a gimmick match. Hopefully AEW delivers as usual. I think it's going to be pretty hard for them not to. If they fumble a card that looks this good, that's going to be on them. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for Forbidden Door and Dynamite in Scotland on Wednesday. That's going to be cool as well, although I have not even checked out a start time for that for here in the U.S. Is that going to air on a tape delay, or I guess we can probably stream that live on Max? I have no info on Wednesday's Scotland Dynamite, but it should be a fun week in general for AEW. And yeah, the Will Ospreay stuff, we will talk about that later. A couple of weeks ago, he was out on Dynamite like he was Shawn Michaels in Lowell, Massachusetts. And then all of a sudden, you know, you get your friends, I'll get my friends, lights out, steel cage, let's just fucking kill each other with all them herniated discs. But it is a multi-man match. We're 10 people in there, so Ospreay can stay somewhat protected, even though it's a very gnarly and violent match. But I'm glad that you're going to get to see him, Luke. That makes me happy. Good to see Titanium Titan, Tommy T-Dog. We got Odyssey in the house, Ricky Zalvadar, and JJ Leg chiming in with 5. What's up, Greg? WWE is doing a great job of making me want to watch AEW even more and headed to Wrestle Dream in October. I mean, we're going to talk about all that, but everybody loves an underdog, you know, and, when WWE starts, trying to box out and stamp out, any sort of threat, you can really start, that can be a risky endeavor, sort of, in terms of, what that can do to the audience and their mentality and whatnot. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Ben Espinoza's here. So is Michael Cuomo. Ryan Adams, good to see you. Arthur Jones. Ben, I think I got you, and anybody else saying hello. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Saturday. Happy weekend to you as we start wrapping up the summer here. And like I said, starting in the fall, these podcasts are going to be a bit later in the day, maybe even after Collision, depending on what's going on there, and they're going to be much longer. And I'm going to allow myself a lot more time to do these, and we're going to allow you guys to select a lot of the topics and definitely ask questions. And, of course, the members are going to get the first crack at that once these changes take effect. And right now I'm just kind of playing with some ideas. So just bear with us here on Saturdays while we, kind of dial in our new podcasts, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Tomorrow, I decided, we've been talking about which watch along we should do this week, and when it comes to SummerSlams, we've done them all. We've done 1988 through 2006 with the exception of 2. Excuse me. We have not done 1996 or 1997. I'm not a big fan of either one of those shows, and I've told you guys that, and I didn't really want to do them because they suck. But then the more and more I thought about it, we got to do 97. We just have to. So tomorrow night, we're going to watch Heart and Soul SummerSlam 1997 watch along. You guys have been requesting this for a long time. You'd think that this would be one of my favorite pay-per-views ever because Bret the Hitman Hart won his 5th WWE Championship in the main event. But I think the show in general just left a sour taste in my mouth because it wasn't a terribly exciting looking card on paper. And then you had a great Intercontinental Championship match with Owen Hart and Steve Austin, but we all remember what happened there. And even Brett's victory, that was the last good moment he had. Right after that, it was all downhill. Then Vince wanted out of the contract. Then Brian Pillman passed away. Him and Shawn had all the problems, and then the screw job. Then he knocked out Vince, and then he was off to WCW. It was just right down the drain right after that. So it's kind of like a bittersweet memory for me, SummerSlam 97, because the summer of 97 was is probably my favorite summer in all of pro wrestling history. Even more than 2011 and in 2001, any other cool, fun summers we can think of. This one was my favorite back then in 1997. So when you see Brett winning the championship at SummerSlam, it's kind of like, oh, that's all over now, and then the wheels come off, and it's just a fucking mess. But it is time to finally watch SummerSlam 1997. We're going to be watching that tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, right here on the YouTube. And then, of course, I do plan to be here on Monday night after Raw because we got a big update on Naomi, and she's going to be addressing the World Championship situation on Raw. So we'll be here for that as well. So that's kind of the housekeeping stuff there, pretty much out of the way. And right on. Okay, we are good. I think we can jump into some of this wrestling news, and I think we need to start right at the top. What's been kind of dominating the chatter all week? It's a little bit more of an extension of what we were talking about last week as well, regarding WWE and AEW and the very, very aggressive counter-programming strategy that WWE is now implementing against AEW. And this is becoming more and more evident with WWE stockpiling shows on AEW events. AEW has tried to bite back a little bit with this next year, putting All In on the same weekend as Money in the Bank, I think. So there's going to be a little a bit of competition here, but WWE seems to be really, really hyper-focused and obsessed kind of with this distant number 2 promotion that's no threat to them at all. They're just kind of like bullying them for no reason and moving shows around in an attempt, at least according to Meltzer. Meltzer did a lot of editorializing this week on The Observer and basically, kind of just observing what we're all observing and coming to his own conclusions. And one of the things that he's, kind of speculating about here is that WWE is trying to stamp out any threat of AEW and try to affect their business and their viewership to such a degree that when their next media rights deal comes up with Warner Brothers Discovery, that Warner Brothers isn't going to keep them around. They want to get rid of Tony Khan before he has a chance to sign his next media rights deal, because the current one that they signed moved them into a profitable company. They are making money now. They got a huge rights increase from the last one, and if they get another one, it'll be a huge increase from that. So WWE's feeling on it, at least according to Meltzer's perspective, is that if they allow AEW to get one more TV deal, they're never going to get rid of Tony Khan. So that's kind of going to be their strategy there, is try to eliminate them and create their own number 2 company in the world in the form of TNA. That seems to be the grand plan right now in WWE. A little bit of that is somewhat scary, and it's also somewhat laughable, because if WWE couldn't get it done with NXT, how are they going to get it done with TNA? And there's a lot of, talk about TNA. We'll talk about John Alba's story here in a minute, with them possibly being sold and WWE being a potential buyer. As a matter of fact, they have a clause, I believe. I have it written down somewhere. Yeah, they've got there's an option that grants WWE the ability to purchase TNA within a specific time frame, along with the right of first refusal on any competing offer for the company. So if anybody offers, they can come in and countermatch them or whatever. So they have got the option. They're basically holding it in their back pocket. They got their option to purchase TNA if they want to. We'll see if they do. Also, what's his name? Lorenzo. Is it Fertitas or Fertitas? I don't know anything about him. He's one of the old school original owners of the UFC. His name has been coming up a little bit as well as it relates to a potential purchase of TNA. So TNA kind of factors into all of this as well. WWE, trying to make maybe TNA their own homegrown number 2 instead of having, a different wrestling company out there. And we've seen what they've done recently with them announcing that there's going to be a big show, a PLE that still does not have a name yet, on September 20th to run head-to-head against AEW All Out. Now, this is going to be the first time the two main roster pay-per-views have gone head-to-head, so that is going to be interesting. But they are... I don't really care so much about the counter-programming, but part of it that I find so eye-rolling is that they're taking John Cena's retirement, which should just be this standalone thing on its own for WWE and John Cena and the fans to experience together. And now they're taking this John Cena and Brock Lesnar match. Granted, there hasn't been an official announcement on this, but Brock Lesnar showed up at SummerSlam, attacked John Cena after he lost the title, and then John Cena booked his match for Clash in Paris against Logan Paul. So the match with Brock isn't going to happen there. It makes sense that they're going to put it on September 20th, because I don't know where else you'd put it other than the big crown jewel show in Perth, or maybe here in San Diego for War Games, but shit, by then, we're down to the final few weeks of John Cena's run anyway. So, sounds like September 20th is where that match is going to be. They're going to book John Cena versus Brock Lesnar to run head-to-head with AEW All Out. Instead of giving John and Brock their own match or their own show or whatever, they're doing this much like Evolution. You know, I felt like the women deserved a lot better from the company, and the women delivered. Evolution was a tremendous show. It was a lot of fun. Imagine how good it would have been if it was on the weekend after, you know. And John Cena here now, not only are they doing this Brock Lesnar match seemingly to go head to head with AEW, they also tried to move John Cena's final match, which I think is currently scheduled for the 13th in December, trying to move that to the 27th. But I think they ran into a roadblock because there's a football game on Peacock. So maybe that didn't work out. But they're actually trying to, or thinking about, trying to move John Cena's last match as a counter-programming tool against AEW. That is some pussy-ass behavior right there. Everything is legal. It's free market competition, whatever you want to do. They have every right to do all of these moves and to make all of these moves. That's totally fine. But as a fan, as a John Cena fan, I kind of wish they wouldn't be using him for this, because it's so unnecessary. And granted, John Cena doesn't give a shit. I am completely convinced that he does not care. His life is so much better outside of WWE. He does not need to deal with the stress or get himself upset or politic or fight for things, because he's John Cena. He's moving on to bigger and better things. He's already a household name, a worldwide movie star. He's only going to go on to do more of this stuff. So I don't think deep down John Cena really gives a shit. You know, Triple H has been, contradicting himself and John Cena lately. Triple H tried to pass the buck off to John Cena when they asked him about how Brock Lesnar came back. He tried to act like it was Cena's idea, where Cena says, they set him up, I knock him down. I just do whatever they tell me. He doesn't fight for anything. He doesn't politic for anything. Doesn't push for anything. Just seems like he's there. Whatever you want to do with me for my final 5 months, I'm fine, because why do I care? I don't care. So he just doesn't care. So if John Cena doesn't care, I don't know why I should. But I think as a fan, or like lifelong fans of John Cena, who might also dabble in a little bit of AEW from time to time, might not want to have to choose on a night like that. You know, shit, you got a great card here from AEW. That All Out is probably going to look spectacular, but now you got John Cena in like one of his final big matches ever. You know, I wouldn't want to be put in that position, but you know, this is the way the landscape is now. You know, years ago, 25 years ago, it was the Monday Night Wars. Now it might be the PLE Wars. That's just the way it is. And WWE's got a clear advantage because all of their stuff is on a streaming platform. It's going to be moving over to ESPN, but you still got to pay $50 a pop for the AEW shows. So this might be beneficial to the fans. Maybe this might light a fire under Tony Khan's ass a little bit to get some sort of a streaming deal for his pay-per-views. Granted, they want to bring in that revenue. I understand that you get for the PLEs, or the pay-per-views, I should say. But when WWE's running one of their PLEs head-to-head, it might be nice to at least have the same advantage they have, to where the fans have to choose of, oh, I can watch this free show on the streaming app that I'm already paying for, or I can slap down $50 to watch this one over here. So until Tony Khan gets that worked out and AEW pay-per-views are available somewhere for streaming, whether it be a subscription service or pay a few extra bucks on Max or whatever, they are going to be at that clear disadvantage. But I don't think in the long run it's going to do too much to the sickos. You know what I mean? Like the freakazoids and the sickos and the AEW diehards, they're going to make AEW the priority and watch WWE later. I think it's the casuals that are probably going to check out WWE and then, you know, do what they can about the pay-per-view. But people who are going to purchase the pay-per-view and have plans to purchase the pay-per-view pay-per-view probably aren't going to cancel those plans in favor of a show that's free. They're probably going to watch the pay-per-view and then catch the show later. In our case, that night, I don't know quite what we're going to do yet, but it's going to be a split screen of some kind. That's going to be like 3 days before I move out of this house, too. So all this shit behind me is going to be taken down and broken down. So it's probably going to be me and a white wall. But we'll have All Out over here. We'll have Bad Blood. It's rumored to be Bad Blood over here, and we'll try to watch them both. So, from that aspect, it can be somewhat fun. The Monday Night Wars, I enjoyed flipping channels, back in the day. But one can't help but wonder, with WWE, granted that none of this is illegal in any way, shape, or form or whatever. They have every right to kind of do these things. But, this is a number 2 wrestling promotion that is a strong number 2, mind you. Tony Khan's got a fuck ton of money. He's got a lot more resources and stuff like that than anybody in TNA does. And he's a very stable owner in a company that's well-funded. So, but even with all of that, compared to the WWE monster, they are so far a distant number 2 that really they're not that much of a threat. The only thing they do is attract some turned off WWE fans. Watching SmackDown last night, just tasteless, directionless, passionless, just formulaic slop. It was cool to see Carmelo Hayes maybe making his way towards a babyface turn, thank God. Other than that, that show was a snooze fucking fest. And WWE used to have this problem years ago, right before AEW started. Remember how horribly these Raws were, how horrible these SmackDowns were. They weren't worth watching. It was a chore to watch them. WWE fans were getting turned off, and they find this brand new, shiny, new, exciting wrestling company over here, and that caught their attention. And WWE now, with all this counter-programming stuff, this is a risky strategy because you can turn off some of the audience. You have wrestling fans that don't give a shit. They're only going to watch WWE. That's all they care about. And no problem. Go ahead. I don't care if you just watch WWE. Cool. There's some wrestling fans that watch both, some wrestling fans that watch everything. And so regardless of where you stand in this, I still think WWE is risking a little bit being this aggressive because you can kind of turn the fans off if you get a little bit overboard about it. And if this is some sort of a full court press to put AEW out of business, I personally do not think they're going to succeed at that. If their goal is to snuff out AEW and affect their numbers and their viewership to such a degree that they're not able to get a media rights deal renewal for either number 1 at all or for the amount of money they're getting, maybe that's WWE's strategy to try to hold them further down, but this punching down strategy, it feels like there's a lot of energy and a lot of focus on that. And sometimes I wonder if they just put that energy into making their show awesome. Look at that show. If they put forth the same effort in putting AEW out of business that they put forth on SmackDown last night, they are going to fail. And so sometimes I wonder, man, they got so much energy, to hold down a non-existent threat, because that's what all their fans say. AEW isn't competition. The fuck they aren't. They absolutely are competition. They just happen to be competition that's never really going to be able to realistically overtake WWE. My biggest problem with TNA fans back in the day is I was happy that there was something else for fans to watch, but they were all telling me they're going to put WWE out of business. I'm like, did you guys go to school or anything? Did you learn how to read, write, arithmetic? Basic stuff. You should know that that's not going to happen. It's fine to support your favorite wrestling company, but let's not be stupid. And with WWE, AEW is never going to overtake WWE. They're too big. They're just a global brand. They've been here for decades. AEW is no threat to that status in the global wrestling scene. They're a number 2, a clear number 2. TNA is not even fucking close. Eric Bischoff is like, oh, they're only one TV deal away from being the number 2 wrestling company. Bitch, you're one fall in a parking lot away from a nursing home. You crazy old kook. Absolutely not. Not even close. The biggest crowd TNA ever drew in their 23-year history is 7,000 fucking fans. AEW had 80K, 3 years in. Shut up. TNA is no comparison to AEW, specifically because AEW and their financial stability that they have. Tony Khan has a shitload of money. And even if TNA gets absorbed by WWE, I still think Tony Khan has the ability to kind of outbid, and for free agents and whatnot. And that really helps, the market value for wrestlers. That helps them. It puts roofs over their head, food on their plates and whatnot. And for, the bad faith little smelly losers who actually root for this, they root for WWE to succeed in this strategy of ruining AEW. They root for there only being one wrestling company, which also means they root for there being less jobs for people. They are also rooting for wrestlers to lose their jobs. And then they are also rooting for wrestlers to get paid less. Because guess what's going to happen? If WWE gobbles up everything and it's just WWE, they get to set the price. They have no competition there. They can lowball everybody, which is what they're probably going to do if they wind up buying TNA. They're going to lowball all of those wrestlers to these shitty little contracts. These are the things that the fucking incels root for. These are the anti-AEW, the Tony Khan obsessed, weird little anger boys, unloved, womanless trolls. They root for these things to happen. They root for people to lose their jobs. They root for less entertainment for the fans, and they ultimately root for less money. Imagine standing or simping, as the kids say, for a fucking billion-dollar corporation who's currently named in a sex trafficking lawsuit. You want them to be the winners, and you want AEW, who's just run by a wrestling fan, lifelong wrestling fan who hugs his wrestlers when he signs them. To them, that's the enemy. But these big, giant monsters, with the figurehead taking shits in women's hair, that's what they're cheering for. That's what they want to succeed. They want them to be the dominant force and the only force across all of wrestling in the world. What is going on in their lives? And then I sit here and wonder why this fucking idiot is in charge in this country right now. I'm like, because people want to be assholes. They just want to be assholes. Being an asshole feels like power to weak people. I've said it over and over and over again. And so the discourse that you see online, you have a lot of people who are actually rooting and cheering for this to happen. They want AEW to go out of business. There's nothing else important in their lives than saying ha-ha to a bunch of strangers on Twitter. Can't go outside, you ain't got no friends. Nobody you can go out have a beer with. You ain't got a woman. Go to the movies. Go outside. Go to the beach. It's fucking summertime. But you're actively rooting. They're making this their identity. They want this to happen. And that's weird. Other fans, however, are kind of like, well, I'm trying my best to see the pros and cons here. Like, I'm slightly low-key excited about the all-out WWE PLE. That might be kind of fun. Obviously your attention's going to be divided. You don't want to really miss out on a match, but I don't know, shows that big. This is kind of a history-making night next month when two PLEs are going to be going head-to-head. WWE and WCW never did that. WWE never did that with anybody. Back then, Vince was calling the cable companies and threatening to pull WrestleMania if they showed the WCW shows or the NWA shows. So this is going to be like kind of one of the first times this has happened, and it could be pretty fun. I'm trying to look at like the silver lining in this. I'm like, it might be make for a fun night of wrestling, make it for a really interesting and convoluted review, but we can be up here doing it. It might be fun. So we'll see with this strategy with WWE and this attempt to try to just snuff out AEW before their next rights deal comes up, which I think is 2027. It might be 2028. And in the next 3 to 4 years or 3-ish years, I think, is when it's coming up for renewal. And we'll see if they can get a new one. Now, Warner Brothers Discovery, that's a mess of a network. There's all sorts of internal drama going on there as well. But, AEW staying the course. They got to really make sure that they continue to provide as best quality entertainment as they can, especially when they're going to be at a disadvantage with WWE breathing down their neck. So they can ill afford to kind of get complacent or just kind of going with the flow. This, again, what competition can kind of do with both companies, we've seen this, is it can motivate them and light a fire under their ass to deliver the best possible shows that they can. And in AEW's case, if they've got a TV deal coming up and they also have WWE who's counter-programming them at every turn, trying to affect their numbers, they have to then effectively counterbalance that with the best possible shows that they can have, really put some thought and creativity into these things and make their shows better than WWE. That way, it doesn't matter what WWE does, their numbers are going to maintain anyway. And their numbers are still good. Their ratings are staying in the 700,000 range. Plus, you got to add those max numbers. They're number 1 or number 2 on cable every single week. So there's no fear there. So I don't really think that this strategy is going to work with the counter programming. There's another strategy. Of course, that is WWE potentially buying TNA. Now, John Alba, our friend John, what's up, John, had a report on this week as well. And here's a little excerpt from that where he talks about TNA and their future. And I quote, multiple independent sources tell The Takedown on Sports Illustrated that there have been at least discussions of TNA moving to a WWE associated network, and that the company is even open to shifting from Thursday to Wednesday nights to go head-to-head with Dynamite. While it was not directly indicated that the destination would be the CW, it was expressed to The Takedown that CW's interest in the promotion is legitimate and that some WWE stakeholders would like to see TNA be a part of that network. It's not clear how far those discussions have progressed, and it was stressed that nothing has been signed as of yet. So WWE could be looking to kind of create TNA into the number 2 promotion, but I do not see this as a possibility at all. They already have NXT. NXT went head-to-head with AEW. AEW put Dynamite on Wednesday head-to-head with NXT. They beat them, and NXT moved to a different night. Now that they're on CW, when you compare NXT's ratings on their own to AEW's ratings on their own, NXT wins a lot of those weeks. But if you were to move NXT back to Wednesday and go head-to-head with AEW, there's no way that bullshit show is going to outdraw AEW. No fucking way. But they still do excellent numbers on CW. So when NXT was still... Granted, it was the pandemic and whatnot, but NXT still had that feeling of the old NXT when AEW first started. And that was a good brand with great wrestlers and good stories and good live events and pay PLEs and all that stuff. The black and gold was excellent, and they couldn't get the job done. And so they moved nights, and then they went to the splashy paint. Now they're doing this new thing, and now I don't even watch the damn show because it sucks. But the old NXT was tremendous. And so now trying to make TNA this like new number 2, even if you were to have, even if you put them on the network, the only way TNA is going to gain any ground on AEW is if you just flood it with everything WWE, because talent-wise, there's no comparison. Unless TKO wants to jump in and try to foot the bill for some free agents for TNA, for them to sign people and throw a bunch of money at someone, that's fine. But I don't think they need to do that. I think WWE, probably their strategy will be, if they do wind up buying TNA, is to do kind of what they're doing with AAA. And that is just put a shitload of their wrestlers on there. Back when the Wednesday Night Wars were still happening, right? Weren't they bringing in all sorts of random WWE guys just to show up on the show? I think Cody Rhodes went head-to-head with AEW one night on NXT. So there have been lots of times where they've already done that. But aside from just loading it up with WWE talent and making it another WWE endeavor, it's all under the WWE umbrella, that just really makes them WWE. I don't look at NXT necessarily as a separate brand from WWE. I mean, I do, not a separate promotion. But if TNA were to be gobbled up or bought or purchased by WWE, and now they're running the shows, they're producing the shows, they have access to all of their own talent, and then it's not even really TNA anymore. You've lost the whole identity of TNA if you turn on TNA and it's Sami Zayn and, against Solo Sikoa and all this shit on TNA, and that's running head-to-head with Dynamite, the TNA beat Dynamite in the ratings. I'm like, no, WWE beat AEW in the ratings. TNA didn't do shit. TNA was purchased by them. WWE used all their talent to pull these numbers. And so if they do that, that's fine. Again, not against the law, just weak, So TNA on their own as they stand right now, even with a new owner, and even if they had a little bit better or more of a stable ownership with some money to spend and some fuck you money like Tony Khan seems to have, I just do not see them being a legitimate threat to AEW, at least right now. You never know what the future holds. They have some serious just production issues. Their show looks very low rent. When I watched the pay-per-view, we did the Slammiversary a couple of weeks ago, I was just looking at it, I'm like, it just looks so independent-ish. Like, doesn't look like there's any money behind it. The pre-show panel was just 3 low-energy people sitting in front of a black curtain. Where's the flash and the pizzazz and all this shit that you see from WWE? Not that makes a wrestling show good. It just looks low budget. Where AEW, They've got a cable television deal every week that is well produced, runs interesting networks. They can produce pay-per-views and live TV, and they do great video packages, good music department. They have all of this stuff, in place where TNA, just they are so far below. Like, it's WWE here, AEW way down here, but then TNA is like down by my feet. And granted, they've survived all these different eras, and they always come out of things better, or they tend to survive when it looks like they're dead in the water. So I'm not saying that a strategy like this couldn't be beneficial to TNA. It definitely can. But in terms of them like being the new number 2, that's going to take a lot. And when you have people like Bischoff saying stuff like, "Oh, they're just one TV deal away," this is what I've talked about so many times. People are just biased. This is what people want. Eric Bischoff, not even, I would say deep down, but not even deep down outwardly. Eric Bischoff really, really wants AEW to fail. He wants that, just like all those little loser anger boys all over social media. They want them to fail. And then they take that want and desire for them to fail, and they try to turn it into a rational opinion. Boy, just one TV deal and TNA is going to take them over. I'm like, what the fuck are you smoking? Jesus Christ. If this strategy is even going to work, this is multiple years in the future. This is not something that, by 2026, TNA is going to be the number 2. I don't know what the hell kind of world you're living in here, or what kind of delusions, you're telling yourself, but that's insane. Let's just not be insane. If you want to be crazy and hate a wrestling promotion and obsess over them like that, go ahead. Do it. But do you have to be insane? Actually, yeah, you kind of do. So I guess that makes sense. That tracks. But for TNA to become the new number 2, the only way that's going to get done is if it gets done under the WWE umbrella with all of they're going to put Brock Lesnar, they're going to put John Cena's final match in a TNA ring. Yeah, sure. Then maybe that'll help them out. But that's not TNA. TNA, how they are currently, is no match whatsoever for AEW. And I just hope that, Tony Khan doesn't just try to take the punches, try to have, strategic measures to counterbalance this stuff. And if they're going to do it, maybe you can do it back, and maybe you can be a little back and forth. Maybe you can prove to WWE that you're not just going to roll over. If they want to be a nuisance to you, you will be a nuisance to them too. And then at some point, somebody might speak up and say, okay, this shit isn't worth it. Let's back off or whatever. We will see, we'll see who backs off first or what the result here is. But if this snowballs into a situation where every single month we've got head-to-head pay-per-views, I don't know if I want that. I just don't think that's good for the wrestling fans. I don't think that benefits anybody. It doesn't benefit the fans. Doesn't benefit WWE to affect their own audience by running head-to-head with another show. They'd be willing to affect their own audience to harm someone else, and that's just a weird strategy. Again, this is all the business side of it, but I think there's a lot of delusion in WWE, and there's a lot of arrogance right now. That they are kind of untouchable because their numbers are so good. But you can already see, we're watching these SmackDowns, you can already see how they're starting to revert back to that just passionless product. Shit you can see coming from across the street, angles you can sniff out, the formulaic nature of the way the segments are broken up and the matches are performed and whatnot. And I feel like all of that stuff, this is a very, very risky endeavor here, because if you do wind up running, like, let's say WWE was running a PLE opposite Forbidden Door, and, or opposite you got Will Ospreay and fucking Swerve Strickland in the ring. And then on the other show, it's Zelina Vega, and Michin and Chelsea Green for the U.S. title. Do you really want to do that? Do you really want the fans? Because that's what's going to happen if you start running head to head. The fans naturally are going to compare the two shows, compare the moments, the wins, which was more exciting, and compare the matches. And WWE has great matches. They still do, especially the women are really kicking it up, and the men, of course, can deliver on any given night over there. But you do have a lot of matches that are just slow, kind of walked through-ish, not very exciting. There's a WWE style to matches. And when you start putting those WWE style matches next to Toni Storm and Athena going 25 minutes, I don't know if that's a comparison you want to draw. I don't know if you want the fans to start realizing, hey, WWE show had more fans. They did a bigger number. so-and-so won the title and the fucking place popped. But in the ring, man, AEW blew them out of the water. So if you want fans to start drawing that comparison, that could be bad for WWE, but it could also, like I said, be beneficial to the fans. I'm looking for anything here that says that makes it beneficial to the fans, because very little of this is. Well, I should say it's not going to be beneficial if WWE succeeds in their strategy. I don't believe they will. I just don't think they can. In terms of putting them out of business, I just don't think they're going to be able to accomplish that. Wrestling needs a number 2 that's not owned by WWE. Pro wrestling needs that. The fans need that. The wrestlers need that. To root against that is to be a willful asshole, is to be a willful, evil prick with nothing else in your life to live for at all. So this strategy, I worry that WWE could be risking their future by, almost giving attention to AEW on some of these nights when they're running, shows head to head. So it's all about how Tony Khan responds. It's all about how AEW stays the course, continues to produce the best TV and pay-per-views that they can. Also, I think it's really important for AEW to start thinking about, that's going to be their next countermeasure, I think, is you really have to start thinking about realistically getting your PL or your pay-per-views on a streaming platform. Even if it means you're going to make a little bit less money, I think at this point, if WWE is going to keep doing this all the time, it's imperative that they do that. Because if we have a counter-programming pay-per-view every single month, that's not going to be great for us. The only way I could see this potentially being beneficial to the fans is if WWE, like I believe, will not succeed in this endeavor of putting AEW out of business. But this nature of competition in general might light a fire under the butts of both companies, because WWE, if they're going to counter-program one of AEW's pay-per-views, WWE can't be stupid. They can't be so far up their own ass that they think AEW is a joke. So if AEW's got a killer card booked and then they want to run one of their little formulaic PLEs up against that, they better damn sure make sure that PLE is pretty fucking good. And that is going to benefit fans, because a lot of fans who don't stream on YouTube like me, don't have a podcast, they can watch both of these shows and they don't have to watch them at the same time. I'll watch one now, I'll watch the other one tomorrow. That's the beauty of the age that we live in with the internet and streaming and all these different things. If this was the 90s, you would legitimately have to choose, but you don't have to do that now. So for the casuals or the regular wrestling fans, or maybe people who even have plans that night and aren't going to watch either show, they're going to check them out later and then draw their comparisons from there. So those fans might get a chance to see both of the shows in their entirety and both the shows of what they have to offer, especially on the positive side. So from a fan's perspective, we could benefit from both companies being forced to put their best foot forward. But in the long term, I feel like this is a strategy of WWE's that is going to wind up being unsuccessful and is very, very risky, considering how you could potentially alienate more fans, especially if your product becomes more stale. And now you're throwing 2-night stale PLEs at us. Now WWE's business kind of dropped. Their storylines sucked. Fans are losing interest, and now they're trying to give us 2-night PLEs and shit. I think that there is such a thing as being too overconfident, too cocky, and being too far up your own ass. And I think that's what's happening to WWE right now. So at least in the short term, long term, who knows? Short term, I think there's a really good chance here that both companies could push themselves to be better. And we, the fans, the audience, the viewing audience, will be the ones benefiting from that. So we will keep our eye on this whole crazy situation, but it's nuts. And we're in a completely different era now. Like, this is a really different type of era compared to some of the other eras of competition. And specifically the Monday Night Wars, this is kind of like a new Monday Night Wars, but a whole different side of it. Never thought we'd have pay-per-view wars, I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't imagine, fully loaded running head-to-head with Bash at the Beach. Like, that would be nuts, wouldn't it? I wonder who would have won back then. Like, especially in, 98, when WWE started, winning some ratings battles. But they weren't out of the woods yet. WCW was still very, very strong. So if you ran, SummerSlam up against Road Wild, Highway to Hell 98 was badass. I think they would have won easily, but WCW still could pull out a good show every now and then, and they had Goldberg, and we just watched Road Wild 98. It sucked. The only good part was Miss Elizabeth in her biker gear. We loved that. So I couldn't imagine having the pay-per-view wars back in the 90s. That would be really hard to wrap my head around, and I wouldn't know what to do. I got to pay $100 to watch both at the same time on 2 TVs with 2 VCRs hooked up. It would have been a mess. It would have been a mess. We're entering a new era. All right, we got some news on, I guess more news on Karrion Kross. This whole situation will not end. Karrion Kross, of course, his contract did expire on August 10th with Scarlett. Ever since, he started this program with Sami Zayn, and we've been hearing rumblings of his contract status and his potential departure. Fans have been wondering whether or not this whole thing could be a big, fat, smelly work. And it really has felt like that is at least a possibility, up until Kross was let go. And then the night that his contract expired, he released a big hour-plus long YouTube documentary talking about all of this stuff. And based on what he was saying there, it was leading most fans to believe that, yeah, this is legitimate. WWE did him a little bit dirty. Then he appeared on the Ariel Helwani show. Now, a lot of fans are saying, oh, he was on there using his WWE gimmick name. No, he wasn't. Ariel Helwani accidentally called him Karrion Kross in the beginning, but then corrected to Killer Kross, and even the name graphic there had Killer Kross on there and his real name and his Twitter handle and all that. So I don't think he was on there as Karrion Kross. I think he was on there as Robert or Killer Kross. And he explained, he opened up about a few more things, and one of them was that promo that he cut after WrestleMania that kind of got a lot of attention, and that we talked about for a little while and thought that this was all part of, Kross moving into some sort of new angle or new gimmick or whatever. And he explained how that came together, and that the day of the promo when they were shooting that, I think that was on the Sam Roberts podcast, he told the producers to make sure that everyone knew that he was going to be working, that this is going to be a work. But he feels that the message really didn't get relayed, and some in WWE management were a little bit upset, including Triple H. So his claim is that promo after WrestleMania did upset a few members of WWE higher-ups. And he talked about his deal as well. He talked about the new contract that he was offered, and that it was... his contract was offered to him, but not Scarlett. And when he asked about his wife, they said that they wanted to deal with him, then they're going to deal with her, which, of course, that's going to sound fishy, and I don't blame Kross at all for being a little bit apprehensive there. Also, in terms of the actual contract offer, he says that when he got the contract offer, he wanted to know, he asked them what analytics they used to arrive at that figure. Basically, he wanted to know how they arrived at this dollar amount. All that tells me is that he did not like that dollar amount. He was offered an amount that he considered low, so he asked for some metrics. He's very into the metrics. He really, really loves metrics. And he wanted the metrics, just show me how you arrived at that figure, and then we'll talk from there. But they kind of ghosted him, and they just ignored him. But all that really means, he could have just told Ariel, they offered me shit. And I wanted to know, hey, why are you offering me? Why are you lowballing me like this? Because if they gave him a good deal, if they gave him more money than he was expecting, do you think he'd want the metrics on that? What if they said, hey, we're going to give you $4.5 million a year, which has got to be a fuck ton more than he's making? Do you think he'd ask for the metrics? No, he ain't asking for no, where do I sign, motherfucker? So the metrics thing, that just tells me that he did not like the offer, and he wanted to know how they arrived at that, and maybe possibly use that as a way to negotiate a higher amount. And with them never getting back to him on that, no deal was signed, and then his contract was up. I'm not even sure if WWE offered him that deal in good faith. Let's just offer him a shit deal, he'll turn it down, and then he'll be gone, he'll be out of our lives. So with everything going on here, Scarlett and Kross have now announced a whole bunch of convention dates. I don't think he's got a match booked yet anywhere outside of WWE, but he is accepting bookings. He's back to being called Killer Kross, and they are going to be doing a bunch of conventions already. So they got some appearances down. But there are still elements here that make you wonder if, obviously, maybe not that the situation is a work, but it could still turn into that. A lot of people in the know feel like they're going to see Kross back in WWE. And so this might be one of these new experimental type of things WWE is trying. I don't know if they're secretly in communication with Kross and they're telling him, go on Helwani, go on all these interviews. Don't trash us, but also let the fans know that maybe you're not happy with the way our business dealings went. I don't know. I feel like in the documentary and on Ariel Helwani, he didn't really paint WWE or Triple H in that good of a light. He wasn't overly bashing them. He certainly wasn't bitter or spent an hour and a half just tearing them, dragging them across the mud or anything like that. Even joked about when Ariel mentioned the "We Want Kross" chants after the SummerSlam, or during the SummerSlam post-show, and Triple H was there and goes, "Oh, you want Brock, huh?" And Kross even gave him a pass on that. He goes, I wasn't sure. Triple H can have a really dry sense of humor. I thought he might have just been joking. So he just really seemed to be apprehensive about really trashing Triple H or the company, while at the same time trying to be, I guess, as truthful as he can, So the way this feels to me is that he might actually still come back. I think WWE wants to see what kind of a support that he can garner from the fans. And of course, the "We Want Kross" chants, we didn't really hear many on Raw. They took a couple signs away apparently, but you did hear a couple on SmackDown last night. So if WWE wants this to be manufactured, maybe they're saying, Kross, hey, try to stay out of the ring as much as you can, but do all your other bookings and appearances, but try to keep yourself healthy. We'll see what happens. Maybe we can bring you back. Or maybe there's just an unspoken understanding between the two parties, Kross and WWE. Hey, if everything goes well, maybe we can still bring you back. A lot of people think they still are going to see him back in WWE. And based on everything that I've seen here, there are things about this that are just a little bit different than situations like this in the past. Like the Truth stuff. I never believed the R-Truth release was a work. This one's gotten me a little bit, I don't know. But it's kind of like the Seth Rollins thing. WWE, if they're trying to do something here and bring him back, and they're trying to kind of work the internet, so to speak, or whatever they're trying to do here. And if that is their ultimate goal, it's going to be the most insufferable episode of WWE Unreal ever. Just like the Seth Rollins stuff. These motherfuckers are going to act like they are the biggest geniuses in the world who fooled everyone. Every single person was fooled. Nobody saw this coming, when in reality, everybody saw it coming. Even me, I was like, I'm leaning towards it's probably a legit injury, but I ain't ruling out that he's going to show up completely injury-free and win the championship, and that's exactly what he did. Same thing with Karrion Kross here. Based on everything that he said in the documentary, his appearance on the Ariel Helwani show, a lot of this stuff and this language and this chatter being used here, this sounds legit, like his contract did legitimately end. But maybe, again, this is all part of it. Maybe Kross knows he doesn't have much of a future in another promotion, so he can effectively leave WWE and be broken away from them contract-wise, but still kind of be in communication, do some things and try to orchestrate a return for himself. I still feel like that's really, really a big possibility for the future. And then if he does wind up coming back, or they hold him off all the way until next year when Sammy starts chasing the World Championship. Right now he's chasing the U.S., He is now on SmackDown, by the way. But by next year, he could be chasing the World Championship, potentially even winning the Royal Rumble and whatnot. So if all that happens, maybe that's where you bring back Kross. I don't know, but I'm still a little bit unsure of the whole thing in terms of I'm not convinced this is all completely legit, and I'm definitely not convinced it's all completely a work either. And I think Kross ruling him out of a WWE return would be silly, because I think there's definitely a chance he could show up. But really, there's so much information, so many different reports throughout the week, that whole hour-long documentary, then this long-ass interview. There's so much stuff to talk about here. At the end of the day, what it really boils down to is that it's all just still really weird, and we don't really know what the hell's going on with Kross. All we can do is just wish him the best. I hope it all works out for him and Scarlett, and I hope if they do experience permanent or temporary time away from WWE, that everything goes good for them and their careers. All the best to Scarlett and Karrion Kross. Vince McMahon, we talked about Vince McMahon this past week as well. So Vince was interviewed, as we know, by TMZ for the big Hulk Hogan documentary, which I do believe has been released. I have not watched it yet. Only because why do I need to? I know every single thing there is to know about Hulk Hogan. I've seen a million fucking documentaries. We just documented and chronicled his whole damn career a couple years ago when we had the 40th anniversary of Hulkamania, and then just a couple of weeks ago when he passed away. WWE has told, retold, and then told the story over and over and over again. We know everything about Hulk Hogan. What the fuck is TMZ going to tell me? Nothing. So if I get around to it, I'll watch it, but I haven't watched it yet. But of course, Vince McMahon was interviewed by the documentary. And a couple of things that he said, about Hulk Hogan's racist comments. And I quote, he says, "I knew he wasn't a racist. I've been with him for so many years. He wasn't racist. He said some racist things. He should pay for that." And he did. In the end, I think everyone saw the real Hulk Hogan and they felt, wait a minute, this guy doesn't act like a racist. He's not a racist. We all make mistakes. That was a big one, but he wasn't racist. I'm going to say something here that might surprise you. I am not even infuriated by these comments by Vince McMahon. Obviously, I think Vince McMahon is a disgusting asshole who rarely has good takes. And this isn't really a great take by any means. But one thing about Vince is that he was there when they had to boot Hulk Hogan, like, out of the company, and they had to kind of get rid of him and distance themselves from him because of those comments. Vince here admits it was a big mistake. We all make mistakes. This was a big one. He wasn't brushing it off, and that really surprised me because people who like support Vince McMahon, it's almost as if they defend or support Vince McMahon or Hulk Hogan. They defend their behavior. They defend Vince McMahon trafficking a woman. They defend Hulk Hogan saying racist shit. They defend it. They don't say they were wrong, they deserve to be held accountable, hopefully they can rehabilitate or redeem themselves. No, they just full on defend it. Like they are okay with it, and they think anybody who has a problem with it is just some snowflake fucking libtard or something. And Vince McMahon here he's not excusing it, and that's one thing that was kind of surprising. It's not like he was trying to excuse the behavior. Hogan said racist things. He made a big mistake. He paid for that mistake, at least in Vince McMahon's estimation. He did. He did have to leave WWE for a while. He came back, gave that really, really shitty apology. Had it been better, maybe things would have ended better for him. But, he was kind of punished by WWE before being brought back. So Vince at least acknowledges that. But, Hogan said, "I am a racist. So how can you say he's not a racist?" That's always been my biggest thing. He's not a racist. I'm like, hey, Hogan himself, how can you say, if you're not a racist, why would you say you are one? I saw one comment that, somebody put on social media, like, this just goes to show you that, if you say racist comments in the privacy of your own home, you're not a racist. It's a difference between being a racist, like saying racist jokes. I've told racist jokes. No race is safe for me. If you've got some good joke that all of us, white honky mayonnaise faces does, some stereotypical thing that we all do, like how we think authentic tacos is the yellow crunchy shells, then go ahead, give it to me. I'm fine with that. I'm not talking about like joking and stuff, but like real racist behavior. I couldn't imagine anybody in the entire world who is legitimately not a racist saying, "I'm a racist," whether it be in private or not, whether you're being recorded without your knowledge or not. If you are not a racist person, why the fuck would the sentence, "I'm a racist," ever come out of your mouth? Why would you say that if you're not a racist? So for people who say Hogan's not a racist, I'm like, look, we're not debating that. Like, Hogan said it. Doesn't that like end the debate right there if it's out of his own mouth? So anyway, Vince's comments, while I didn't completely agree with them on Hogan, it was like, hey, at least he's like acknowledging the mistake. All the other fans are like, he does not deserve to be punished. It was fine. There's nothing wrong at all with what he said. I'm like, oh my God, you're one of them, aren't you? So at least Vince like understands that, there was a problem there. Hopefully Vince understands that about himself too. Also, the TMZ guy that was interviewing Vince said that it struck him that Vince was not present for Hogan's 10-bell salute, and Vince said that it struck him too, and that he was a little bit frustrated about it. This fucking guy with his melted skin and this Cruella de Vil hair, this guy looks like a villain. This is the villain that the Equalizer kills last. This is like the last guy Denzel gets in those movies. Such a fucking villain. But Vince McMahon and the TMZ guy, has he not been paying attention to the news? Does he not understand? What do you mean it struck you that Vince wasn't there? He's a co-defendant alongside WWE in a sex trafficking lawsuit. They're going to stay the fuck away from him. Could you imagine if they let Vince back into WWE backstage? Don't you think he would just sit down right there in Triple H's chair and try to take over? I wouldn't want him anywhere around there. So Vince wasn't there for Hogan's 10 bell. Boo fucking who? Who gives a shit? So anyway, Vince wasn't there. Cry me a river, although with those eyes, I don't even think they can produce tears. Vince is a weird-looking dude. Oh, man, we got some good news on, well, I should say potentially good news. Not good news yet. Nothing's been definitive. But here is what Fightful Select had to say this week about WWE's tape library and where it might end up. Now, of course, WWE's deal with Peacock, I think, runs through, next year, whatever, at least for the PLEs. Or not the PLEs. PLEs are going to ESPN for the tape library, the past PLEs. When that deal with Peacock runs out, it's had a lot of fans worried about where the tape library could go. Now, it was reported that WWE could be seeking a completely separate media rights deal for the tape library, which is great. As long as it lands somewhere, that's all I care about. And I had kind of speculated a couple of weeks ago that if it was up to me, I would just put it all on YouTube. And it sounds like that is a possibility. Here's what Fightful Select had to say yesterday about this. And I quote, "There hasn't been a definitive announcement as to whether or not the library would get licensed out after the Peacock deal, but we have spoken to people in WWE with theories. Most believe that WWE will utilize their relationship with Google/YouTube and utilize that for the library content. Oh, would that make watch-alongs so much easier over here on Sundays? One source that we spoke to thinks that will allow them to cultivate new fans via archived content, and if they get a too good to be true offer for the library, they can always take that. WWE already has almost every show they've ever uploaded on a back end for copyright purposes, or copyright recognition purposes, everything from the current episodes of Raw to Shotgun Saturday Night in the 90s. So WWE, so they can recognize copyright, is uploaded already their entire library to YouTube right now. So we have the WWE Vault channel. We have the WCW Vault channel. We have the regular WWE YouTube channel. And I'm not sure if there's an ECW Vault yet. Is there? I'm not sure if they put one up. And these Vault channels are great. They have several 100,000 subscribers. The videos do well, and they don't ever mention any of this on television. They don't advertise this at all. Imagine if the tape library just landed on YouTube and you had everything there. You had the WWE Vault channel, the WCW Vault channel, and the ECW Vault channel, maybe even the AWA Vault channel. You can create all these Vault channels where fans can go subscribe. And if you're a premium YouTube subscriber, and if WWE ends up doing this, I highly recommend everybody going to premium. You already should be. Don't sit through these fucking ads. I don't know how you guys watch my face and then have to be interrupted by an ad. I haven't seen an ad on YouTube since premium launched. So if they put the library over there and then you get premium, shit, we can do our watch-alongs. You got no ads to worry about. I can just provide you the link right down in the description for you to click right over and watch it with us. I am really, really hoping that this turns out to be true, just for the channel's purposes and our watch-along purposes. Being able to watch everything right here on YouTube would really, really be ideal. So let's hope that that actually is going to become a reality. Did you guys see the photo of Triple H and Stephanie? I'm not going to put it here on the screen because that's stupid, but Triple H and Stephanie were spotted on vacation, both in their swimsuits. Stephanie looking pretty good, and Triple H, I've kind of wondered what his physique has looked like, because he's probably not working out anymore, and he definitely kind of is getting old, but that's what happens, and he's just got the dad bod. Who cares? Big deal. Triple H and Stephanie, it's good to see them out on vacation because Vince McMahon famously never took them. And with Triple H's job and how hard it seems to be, according to the WWE Unreal documentary, I'm surprised he has time to enjoy himself at all. So good to see them out, kicking it. That was fun. Also, a couple of AEW news tidbits here. They had a big signing this week. Ace Austin has signed officially with AEW. This is a big signing. This guy's great. Former TNA X Division champion. Really solid signing, and he's going to be making, I believe, his debut tonight on Collision against Ricochet. So Ace Austin coming in is a huge get for them. Also, apparently Tony Nese has been working backstage as an agent, and Angelico has been working as a coach and producer backstage for quite some time. So that was Interesting to learn. Also, Matt Menard, Daddy Magic, has signed, I guess, a 5-year extension with AEW. He's going to be around that company until 2030. So good for Matt Menard. And a fan had asked Sean Ross Sapp about the status of Britt Baker, and he replied that all he knows is that she's healthy and has about a year left on her contract. She put up a really beautiful social media post just the other day of her walking down the beach in a hat and a bikini, and she's got flowers, and she's happy, seems to be enjoying herself, and seems to be doing good. So excited one day to see Britt Baker again, but if I had to guess, I feel like she's done with AEW, and she's just going to sit out the next year before she goes to WWE. I mean, if they bring her back now, why would you bring her back, especially if she's going to leave? The only way I would bring back Britt Baker if I'm Tony Khan is if you re-sign her to a brand new deal. But is that something I think Britt Baker's time in AEW is just done. I think Britt should go to WWE, and we probably will not see her there for over a year. So we can just look forward to keep an eye on her on social media. And that was one post that made me go, hubba hubba. Best of luck to Britt. Hope to see you back on television one day soon. So later tonight, I think we are about 2 hours away from the start time of AAA's Triple Mania. This, of course, is headlined with a big main event. 75% WWE guys. We got Vikingo defending the title against Dragon Lee, El Grande Americano, and Dominic Mysterio. Also, we have tag team title match. We got Angel and Berto defending the AEW, defending the AAA tag team titles. We got a 6-person tag with Nino Hamburguesa, Mr. Iguana, and Lola Vice. They're going to be taking on Finn Balor, JD McDonough, and Raquel Rodriguez. So that's an intergender 6-person tag there. We've got Natalia involved in a triple threat match as well. And we have a Copa Bardal match, which is similar to a Royal Rumble, which we could see some WWE entrance in that as well. So a really, really strong influence for Triple Mania tonight. I'm going to do my best to kind of take a look at it when I get home this evening from work because it's airing on YouTube for free. So WWE's YouTube channel, and I think AAA's and WWE's Spanish channel should all be simulcasting AAA Triple Mania tonight, and I think that goes live at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, if I'm not mistaken. So those of you who are watching Triple Mania, enjoy. And if you want to send me any updates or screenshots or clips from the show later on tonight over on the Twitters, feel free to do that because I would love to be updated on the show and to see if we get any title changes there. I saw something funny this week about there's been talk about bringing back Omos to be one of the El Grande Americanos. That would be great. I hope Omos shows up tonight at Triple Mania dressed as El Grande Americano. Another one. I don't think my Mexican inches excuse is going to work for that one. Like I said, last night, TNA held their Emergence show. I didn't even know about it until today. That's why I'm like, TNA going to be the number 2 promotion? I didn't even know they had a fucking show last night. I saw Trick Williams beat Moose in the main event. That's all I know about Emergence for last night, and I highly doubt I'm going to be watching Bound for Glory and watching the fucking Dudleys and Hardys. Speaking of the Dudleys, Bully Ray was asked by a fan on his dumb podcast this week if Vince McMahon should appear for John Cena's final match, and he's like, absolutely. I think the majority of the fans really want Vince there, and they can really rally around the positivity. Jesus Christ, Bully Ray. I got grounded by Twitter yesterday for 12 hours for throwing a second-grade insult at Bully Ray. Bully, whose name is Bully, got butthurt because I told him I hope his tongue falls off. Isn't that something you'd say to a kid on the playground in second grade? I hope your tongue falls off. If you die, I'm not going to your funeral. Just a little second grade insult. I didn't even do a swear. No slurs, no swears, no hate, no nothing. I just want his tongue to fall out of his mouth so we don't have to hear his stupid fucking opinions. And it got me grounded for 12 hours on Twitter last night. Yesterday, I didn't give a shit. I had a super busy day. I didn't even notice. By the time my suspension was up, I was home and getting ready for the podcast, so I didn't even notice it, but I did think it was funny. And Bully Ray acting like Vince coming out, that fans could rally around that positivity. And he goes, and kind of put everything else out of their mind, and put what else out of our mind, Bully? What specifically are we putting out of our mind? What's that? Oh, you mean that sex trafficking lawsuit that Vince McMahon is named in with some really, really gory details and very explicit text message screenshots that we have? that have given us a quite a nice little picture there. It's painted us quite a nice one of what Vince McMahon is up to in his free time. That's what we should just put all that out of our mind, Bully says. And we should embrace the positivity. What in the fuck is going on? Bully, please shut the fuck up. By the way, LFG sucks. Your show sucks. And you suck. Your podcast sucks. And your face sucks. And I'm not going to watch you and Devon stumble around that fucking ring at Bound for Glory. You guys can do that on your own. We'll watch like No Mercy from 25 years earlier that night. So anyway, Bully's an idiot. Okay, Monday Night Raw. This coming Monday, we're going to be here for a review because we're going to have some big news, I believe, on Naomi. Now, on Monday night, we were here for a review, of course. And Naomi was supposed to defend the title against Io Sky, and it was announced before the show that she wasn't cleared, but we didn't know why she wasn't cleared. And then WWE was kind of tight-lipped about it all week, and some fans started sniffing out that, oh, there might be a bun in the oven here. Now, again, this is their business and whatnot, but this is nothing that, this is, I don't believe that speculation like this is bad in any way. Naomi's been pretty open about her desire to want to start a family. Even recently, there's some comments of her and Jimmy. I don't know where they was at Van Vliet, where they were kind of talking about this. And it still remains to be seen if this is actually what's going on here. But since we didn't hear about any sort of a specific injury, it's not like it's an ankle or an arm, a leg, a concussion, a broken rib, nothing like that. It was just she wasn't cleared. We didn't really know why. And now Naomi is going to address the status or the future of the Women's World Championship on Monday's Raw, and has a lot of fans speculating that she's going to relinquish the title and announce that she's pregnant. And if that is the case, I'm ecstatic for her and Jimmy. I'm very happy for them, wish them nothing but the best. As a fan, I'm bummed out because I'm loving this new Naomi heel run. She's right in the middle of not only her heel run, but she's also champion. So I don't know if you're actively trying to get pregnant while you're champion in the middle of this big run. It might have been slipping one past the goalie. We don't know. We don't even know if that's the case. But we're going to find out on Monday night. And you remember when Becky got pregnant, she was also champion. These women only get pregnant when they're champions. So she was also champion, and she gave the belt to Asuka in that really cute little moment between them during the pandemic. And now Naomi, who's been this disrespectful heel champion, she's going to come out and try to be a teary-eyed babyface announcing that she's pregnant, and fans are going to cheer for her, and she's going to forfeit the title. I don't know if she's going to try to stay a heel through all this. She can't get physical. If she's pregnant, she can't brawl with anybody. So if she's going to try to be a heel through all of this, I don't know. Like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go have my baby. I'm going to come back and take my title. I don't know what she's going to say. But I have a feeling that they're setting up a four-way in Paris. So what I think is going to happen is Naomi's going to relinquish the title on Monday, and then it's going to be Stephanie Vaquer, who's getting the championship match anyway at Clash in Paris. She'll be facing Io, Sky, not a fatal four-way, a three-way. It'll be Stephanie Vaquer, Io Sky, and Rhea Ripley. Three-way for the vacant championship at Clash in Paris. That's what I believe will happen. What I want to see happen is I want to see Io Sky win that belt back and then take that into Perth in Australia and drop it to Rhea Ripley. And then have Rhea carry it all the way into WrestleMania to drop it to Stephanie Vaquer. That's how I want to see all that going down. But if Naomi's going to be fine and she's going to be working Clash in Paris, then I think she needs to retain over Stephanie. But it's starting to sound like it's good news for Naomi and Jimmy. I hope it's good news and not bad. I hope that they're excited about starting a family, and it's not that Naomi has suffered a career-ending neck injury or something like that. So fingers crossed that this is all good news, but Naomi will be addressing the status of her and the championship this Monday on Raw, and we will be here after the show to talk about it on Monday. Oh, thank you. Ryan Adams, thank you for that $5. Excuse me. That's right. The NFL gave me an excuse to miss Bound for Glory. Sunday Night Football is Lions versus Chiefs. I completely forgot about that, and I think we're going to be missing a watch-along altogether that night because when I saw that game on the schedule, I texted my sister, and I said, hey, I think I found a good football day for us because they're Chiefs fans. I was like, Lions and Chiefs on October, I think it's like 11th or whatever it is, and she goes, hell yeah. So I think I'm already booked for that night. So we're not going to be here for a regular watch-along or a Bound for Glory watch-along or Lions versus Chiefs. I'm going to be over hanging out with them watching that game. So thank you there for the reminder on that, Ryan. I'll hit those other super chats in a minute. Terry Allen, thanks for the 250. Thanks for the 250, man. Appreciate that. Will you keep the Monday's podcast opening song? You mean like my countdown screen? I'm changing up all that too. But the intros, I'm working all that cosmetic stuff. I'm kind of doing like off to the side, but I do know we need some updates. I put an update on the one here today. And Monday will probably, change up a little bit, but I'll try to keep it for now just for you, Terry, because we don't want to upset Terry. Man, I would like to talk about SmackDown, but SmackDown sucked. What a boring ass show. We did hear some "We Want Kross" chants last night, which was nice to hear the support for him. We'll see if that turns out to be anything. But in terms of the rest of the show, it just sucked. There was no Cody on the show. Sami Zayn is now officially a member of the SmackDown roster, and I think maybe LA Knight is officially on Raw now. Hopefully that's the case. Nice little swap there. And Sami Zayn, I guess in the meantime, between now and when he starts making his run for the world title that we're still expecting him to have next year with the Royal Rumble being in Saudi and big match for Sami possibly on the horizon, maybe Sami and Cody at WrestleMania or something, feels like that could be the working plan at least right now. But as we know with those whiteboards, your name might be up there, but it can easily be erased. But at least that's the way it feels right now. But in the meantime, Sami Zayn might be targeting the United States Championship from Solo Sikoa. So Sami and the MFTs have a big opening segment that leads to a big attack on Sami. Jimmy Uso and Jacob Fatu run in to make the save, and then Aldis comes out there to make the big impromptu 6-man main event, and it was Sami Zayn, Jimmy Uso, and Jacob Fatu. They defeated Solo Sikoa, JC Mateo, and Tonga Loa. That was the main event. Whatever, just a match that they won. That's all it was. It was just there. SmackDown this week just existed. It just existed. It didn't really do much for us. Alexa Bliss defeated Piper Niven one-on-one after the match. Alexa and Charlotte got beat down by the Secret Hervis. Still liking Alexa and Charlotte. They put up a really cute little Instagram post or something with the two of them that I liked. I'm really, really liking this alliance for Charlotte because I think deep down, I've never really wanted to dislike her. And so I'm happy that she's, kind of trying to change perception a little bit of her, at least from the fans, and just do something a little different. And that Charlotte has never changed at all. Heel, babyface, no matter what year it is, she talks the same, acts the same, wrestles the same, wears the same shit, has the same attitude, same personality. Nothing at all has ever changed with her ever. So the fact that she now has somebody that she can play off of, I think this is only positive for Charlotte, and wishing this team the best because I like them. Carmelo Hayes and The Miz. At least they're doing something with Carmelo finally. Carmelo, Mr. number 1 draft pick, has done a big pile of dildos ever since he came in. He's done nothing. And now him and Miz are taking on Fraxium last night. Fun match here, and Carmelo was all set to get the win here when he was blind tagged in by The Miz, who jumped in and then got the win for his team on his own, which kind of upset Carmelo a little bit. And then backstage, The Miz is back there jawing with the Motor City Machine Guns and Nick Aldis and wants a match with the Machine Guns next week. So Miz and Mello now get that match, but Mello didn't really want it. So you can tell that this thing is about to end. Miz is probably going to try to pull some shit next week. I wouldn't have them beat Fraxium, or I wouldn't have them beat the Guns the way they beat Fraxium. I would have them lose to the Guns, and hopefully that will lead to the official split and the turn of Carmelo Hayes, because if there's one thing I don't need here is this to be like a 4-week-long separation where they're teasing it, and then bam, they strike. There's no need to do that here. Just do it next week. Do it quickly like you did with Cope and Christian, which kind of surprised me. Also backstage, I saw the little segment where Kiana James offered her services to Tiffany, who looked amazing, by the way. Ludwig, how did you do it? Tiffany declined, so Kiana's kind of back there being that like manager. She wants to manage people, I guess, so I have very little interest in whatever that's about. And Drew McIntyre cut his big promo on Cody Rhodes and the attack on Cody last week, claymoring him through the table and whatnot. Went out the outside of the ring and did a play-by-play walk-through replay of everything that happened last week. And then they threw him into the ring post, and then I threw him over here and went on and on about Cody, and Cody was not on the show. So obviously we're going to get a Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre match here for the championship. I am not dead set on feeling that match will be in Paris, because Cody was not even on the show last night. He might finally show back up next week. He might be off filming Street Fighter. We don't even know what's going on with Cody. But I kind of think that Clash in Paris wouldn't be where that is. It could be, but that would put some big matches on that card. So Cody and Drew could definitely happen at Clash in Paris. Normally, that's where I would assume it would happen, but we still have that September 20th show. Brock and John Cena, that's only going to be 12 minutes, of that, head-to-head with that 4.5 fucking AEW pay-per-view. So you might want to load that show up with more than just Brock Lesnar and John Cena, because if that's all you have on the card, then the only thing All Out has to worry about is 12 minutes of John Cena and Brock Lesnar. I would, if I was AEW, I would try to have a good idea of when WWE's Hard Out is on Peacock for Cena and Lesnar, and just make sure I have my weakest match on the card happening during that point, or having some silly backstage stuff happen, or play a really long video package, or I don't know. I would just do something to where it really doesn't affect you at all, and then you can still have your main event go in its entirety while Brock and Cena have already had their match. So WWE, it's going to take more than just Brock and Cena. They might want to add other stuff, and Cody and Drew feels like a possibility. So I think Cody and Drew has just as good of a possibility of happening in September against All Out as it does in Clash in Paris. And maybe it happens in both. It could be a match in Clash in Paris. Cody wins. Drew wants another match, and and they do another one. It could be something like that as well. So we will see. But no Cody on the show last night. And then in the... we already talked about the main event, but we also had DIY defeating the Street Profits. So all we had last night on SmackDown was just matches. They were fine, but they're, and some of these talents are just incredible. DIY and Street Profits was fun. I love the three-way pat on the back with Gargano and the lovely Candice, who I really do think looks like Miss Elizabeth, doesn't she? And Tommaso Ciampa. And, of course, Fraxium, Carmelo Hayes, good match there. Main event wasn't even bad. It's just, there was just nothing to the show. There was just nothing there. Nothing there on SmackDown last night. Just a nothing burger of a show. I think Dynamite was a little bit better this week. Dynamite was a fun show because we are getting closer to Forbidden Door, and they did add a couple of new matches to the card as well, and Forbidden Door is looking stacked. Now, we've been waiting to see what kind of a World Championship match we're going to have at Forbidden Door. Is it going to be Hangman Page taking on somebody from New Japan, or is it going to wind up being MJF? MJF, of course, has that contract that he's been teasing, and Hangman wants to face MJF but doesn't want to have that insurance policy hanging over his head, so Hangman kind of manipulates MJF here in the opening segment of Dynamite on Wednesday and basically goads him into cashing in his contract for Forbidden Door. And the moment that the frustrated Max said, fine, let's do it, Forbidden Door, I'm cashing in my contract, he instantly kind of regretted, like, oh, fuck. I let my emotions screw myself out of this great advantage that I have in the form of this contract. Now I'm cashing it in, and he knows when I'm going to cash it in. So MJF kind of regrets that, and now it's official, MJF versus Hangman Page for the AEW World title at Forbidden Door. Later on, as the show ended on Wednesday, the very final thing we saw on the show after the main event was the parking garage when Renee was trying to get a word with Hangman Page, and then he was attacked by MJF and laid out in the parking lot. So it's going to be MJF and Hangman for the championship. I think that it's going to be a really good match. I don't think MJF really has too much of a chance of winning here unless they try to factor in something with the Hurt Syndicate. Maybe they do come out and try to help him out. I don't know, but it also feels like Max is kind of done with the Hurt Syndicate at this point. And he's going to be kind of on his own against Hangman. And I don't really want to see MJF win the belt back. I don't think he's gonna, but now at least we have the match made official for Forbidden Door. I'll be right back. There we go. Just felt like my lighting was a little off. I wanted to close the curtains a little bit because that was driving me crazy. I'm like, am I a little bit faded out there? There we go. I don't feel like I had the right lighting today. Anyway, On Dynamite, also, we had Jon Moxley defeating Kevin Knight. I really liked this finish here. He choked him out for a submission, but it was the camera angle on that looked so cool. It was kind of like an overhead shot of Moxley, with that sleeper on Knight. That was awesome. And then it got nuts after that. So after the match, Darby Allin, he shows up with his skateboard and he's attacking everybody. He's got a body bag with him. He ends up getting nailed by Claudio, who puts Darby in the body bag and even spins him around, gives him like an airplane spin and slams him on the mat. And so he's kicking the crap out of Darby Allin. Then Will Ospreay comes down to make the save and runs everybody off. And we saw Ospreay a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite out there very down on himself, very dejected, very melancholy, very concerned and worried about his physical future in wrestling, and talked about the herniated discs and the neck issues that he has, and how it sounded like he was going to lose his smile and retire, only to say he plans on being there for Forbidden Door. And I'm like, okay. So the thought is that he's going to work for Forbidden Door because it is in London, and then he's going to take some more time off to get these injuries taken care of. So he's out to make the save, and he gets on the mic and he tells Mox and Claudio to get their friends, and he will get his friends, and they will face each other in a lights-out steel cage match at Forbidden Door. So throughout the rest of the show, they formulate their teams. Will Ospreay, his team is going to be himself, the Golden Lovers, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, Darby Allin, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Fucking Tanahashi is going to be one of the members. Mr. Tanahashi with no knees, who's in his retirement tour as well, is going to be one of the members in this lights out match. The babyfaces are going to be taking on Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, the Young Bucks, and Gabe Kidd. So in terms of protecting Will Ospreay, he should be all right in here. This is a cage match with 10 guys in it. So help me out with the cages in AEW. Are the lights out cages just regular cages, or do they extend beyond the perimeter of the ring? Is it like a Hell in a Cell? Because I feel like they're just standard cage matches, and I feel like if you're putting 10 guys in there and nobody can get out, I feel like people will wind up getting out. They'll probably spill out everywhere. But that's a lot of people in a small space. So obviously, physically, Will Ospreay can be a little bit protected there, which is good. So can Tanahashi. But it's probably just going to be a lot of bleeding. I think everybody's going to be somewhat safe in this match. A couple guys, the Bucks are going to jump off the top. Darby is going to do something insane. Everybody's going to blade. Even Kenny being back in this and whatnot. We'll see. But lights out cage match has been added to Forbidden Door, and Ospreay will be heading up his team, and that sounds fun. Also on Wednesday, we had this tag match. It was Alex Windsor. It was a 6-woman. It was Windsor and Willow Nightingale and Queen Aminata. They defeated Mercedes, Monet, Sky Blue, and Tekla. Now, after the match, Toni Storm and Athena are in the balcony. They just start brawling and fighting each other. This spills all the way back into the ring. Big brawl. When all the smoke clears, Toni and Alex Windsor wind up pitching a tag team match for next week in Scotland. It's going to be Toni Storm and Alex Windsor versus Mercedes Moné and Athena in Scotland on Wednesday. That is going to be tons of fun. And then, of course, it's Toni and Athena at Forbidden Door for the title, and Mercedes is defending her TBS championship in a 4-way. Then after that, it was time. I was looking forward to this. So last week we saw Copeland inform Stokely Hathaway, who is short, is bald, and gets no hose, that he was going to have to face Adam Copeland one-on-one this week on Dynamite. Now, FTR currently has this restraining order against Copeland, so Copeland's now put them in this position to where I'm going to face your manager and I'm going to fucking kill him, which means you have two choices. You can either watch him die or you can void your restraining order and jump in the ring and save him. So this was Copeland's way of getting rid of that restraining order, and it worked. It didn't work right away. He did get Stokely in the ring a little bit and was pummeling him. Finally, FTR comes out, and after a little bit of hesitation, they finally interfere. They attack Adam Copeland, so now the restraining order is null and void. They throw powder in his eyes, and right when they're about to do in Adam Copeland, out comes Christian. Christian's music hits. He comes out with Spike to make the save, runs off the heels, and it leaves Christian and Copeland in the ring together. There's a little stare down there. Christian has Spike, and he hands Spike over to Copeland, and he just starts to walk away, and that's when Cope grabs him by the shoulder and pulls him in, and they share a hug. It was cool to see Edge and Christian hug on TNA, or I'm sorry, on AEW and reunite. I don't know if I would put it up there with the Owens and Sami Zayn hug when they reunited a couple of years ago in that great segment. I think it was on SmackDown that was just so wonderful. And I've always compared Owens and Zayn. They're like a modern day Edge and Christian, to me, to Canadians, lifelong friends type of thing. And so I always draw comparisons between them. So when it comes to Cope and Christian's hug and Sami Zayn and Owens' hug, I got to give the nod to Zayn and Owens. That was really good. This one I still have my doubts about. It seemed like it happened real fast. I thought it would be a little bit longer of a road for Christian to kind of redeem himself. But at the same time, if you have that all-out show coming up in September on the 20th and you want to do that tag match there, you have to have these guys reunite now. So I'm almost wondering I'm almost thinking they could have waited a little while longer. I guess they wanted to get a tag match on Forbidden Door. I'm still skeptical if this is really going to work. Maybe Christian and Copeland still have some kinks to work out in their relationship. And they're going to be taking on Kip Sabian and Nick Wayne at Forbidden Door. I wouldn't be opposed to Sabin and Wayne winning. The only problem with that is, how do you give Cope and Christian a championship match at All Out? I think maybe the point of having them on Forbidden Door in a tag team match is so they can get a tag team victory, so where at least you're not just granting them a tag team title shot for no reason, because we've seen that the Hurt Syndicate, they're going to be facing the winners of this Eliminator. They've had this Eliminator thing going on to determine the number one contenders. So to just grant it to Cope and Christian would be weird, unless, of course, FTR wins the championships, and then they storyline-wise can work out a match that way. Maybe Christian and Cope kidnap Stokely. They got them all tied up. Give us a championship match, or we're rolling a little guy in his wheelchair right down the stairs. Or, like at the end of Naked Gun, Nordberg, O.J. Simpson goes down when he flies off the edge. Like, do something like that with Stokely, and then FTR is forced to put the titles on the line. But we're looking way ahead here. We're assuming that FTR is going to be the Eliminator winners, because that still has to be figured out, right? And then they're going to face Hurt Syndicate at Forbidden Door and beat them. That's what I feel like is going to happen. And then it can be FTR versus Cope and Christian at All Out, unless MVP and Hurt Syndicate refuse to lose or something, which that I suppose could happen. But part of me wonders if maybe they're not totally on the same page yet. Like, they're going to have some kinks to work out in the Forbidden Door match, or maybe they do show some issues there, but they're able to correct those issues throughout the course of the match and still get the win. Might be something like that. But the way the hug and the reunion came together, granted they don't have time to pussyfoot around, it still felt a little bit on the quick side. So we'll see if Christian is pulling another fast one here, or if these guys are really reuniting and going to win tag team gold. October is going to be a crazy month. There's a chance that in October, there's a really good chance that while the Dudleys and the Hardys are wrestling in a ladder match in TNA, that Edge and Christian are tag team champions over in AEW. That is a wild thought. 25 years after that first TLC match at SummerSlam. Wow. So anyway, Cope and Christian back together, and they hugged it out on Dynamite. That was really nice. We also had a Hook teaser on Dynamite, so Hook still on his way back. And, the deal with I guess Samoa Joe as well, because he's been dealing with some injuries. So whenever Hook made his return, I was kind of thinking that he was going to kind of turn on the ops, but I'm not totally sure what they're going to have him do now when he returns. And I feel like he's, he's healthy, but they're not quite sure. We've heard about Samoa Joe. Granted, he wrestled on Dynamite, and they were victorious, by the way, in the main event, defeating Rush Dralistico and the Beast, the very, very lucky, the Beast Mortos. But the entire team of the Ops won in the main event. And at some point, Hook's going to come back, and he's probably going to fuck them out of the trios titles. But it was a good main event. It was an exciting match and whatnot, but sometimes, I feel like like they could have put the whole Cope and Christian hug in the main event or something, or just kind of ended on a different note there. But Tony Khan is, paying attention to the quarter hours and the ratings and all that. That's why he maybe starts the show hot and ends it a little bit slow. But every now and then we can still get awesome main events on Dynamite. It was just kind of a weird one. I would have done I would have either done the MJF Hangman segment in the main event, or that just culminated with a brawl that spilled out in the parking lot and MJF gets the last laugh, or I would have closed with Cope and Christian hugging and then the show fading to black. I think that would have been a really good way to do it. Either way, Dynamite wasn't a bad show this week, and I considered it, just personally, I liked it better than SmackDown, because SmackDown has been sucking lately. So now Raw kind of feels like it's the better show between the two brands. Raw is still somewhat solid every week. SmackDown is just starting to feel empty and directionless, where Raw feels like it's got a little bit more to it. So we'll see when Cody gets back to SmackDown and how the program with McIntyre plays out. And, of course, you got to get Cena and Logan Paul back on TV. Logan Paul got married this weekend to that girlfriend of his, so he wasn't around either. So no Cody, no Logan, no Cena on SmackDown last night, which is why I think Dynamite was somewhat of a stronger show. Here's what we got for Forbidden Door. Here's the card that I have. I'm hoping I don't miss a match, or I'm not missing a match here. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 matches I've got written down. So the card is probably complete, and we'll probably add maybe one more match or something on the 0 hour, but this looks like it's going to be it. So we've got the Hurt Syndicate. They're going to be defending the AEW tag titles against the winners of that Eliminator tournament. Also, Kazuchika Okada is defending that what's it called now? The unified title against Swerve Strickland. I was really hoping Swerve would win here, but I'm starting to think he might not win this match, but I want him to. Also, Mercedes is going to defend her TBS championship in that four-way. Stardom, AEW, and CMLL will be represented there, right, against Mercedes. And then Tony Storm is defending the AEW Women's Championship against Athena, and this will be Athena's contract cash-in as well. Athena and Max both owning the contracts, both getting their title shots here at Forbidden Door. Kyle Fletcher, he'll be defending the TNT title against Hiromu Takahashi. That'll be fun. So finally starting to feel a little bit Forbidden Door-ish as we are getting some New Japan representatives a little bit on this card now. Zack Sabre Jr., he's going to be taking on Nigel McGuinness. Of course, we have that lights-out steel cage match that I mentioned earlier. The Golden Lovers, Darby Allin and Tanahashi. The Golden Lovers, Darby Allin, Tanahashi, and Will Ospreay taking on Moxley, Claudio, the Bucks, and Gabe Kidd. Also, Cope and Christian are now booked in a tag team match against Kip Sabian, and Nick Wayne. And of course, the main event will be the AEW World Championship. Hangman Adam Page defending against MJF. So that is what's on tap for the Forbidden Door card so far. And that is going to be a good one, because that is a Sunday, right? Forbidden Door is Sunday the 24th, I believe, right? Why don't I know this stuff? Yeah, the 24th, so Sunday. So we'll be here that night to do a watch-along of that and a review, and that'll be what? Next Sunday. Yeah. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be doing the SummerSlam 97 watch-along, but the week after, we're going to be here for Forbidden Door, and then the week after that, I believe, is the final day of August, which I think might be Clash in Paris, or is that the day before? I don't know. We got so much stuff coming up. But anyway, that's how Forbidden Door looks in terms of that card. And then is what we got on Collision tonight as well. Here's what they have scheduled for Collision. So we've got Jet Speed taking on Moxley and Wheeler Yuta. I love this. We have the Technical Spectacle. Hechicero, Lee Moriarty, Nigel McGuinness, and Daniel Garcia. That looks fun. Julia Hart taking on Chris Statlander, Penelope Ford, and Anna Jay in one of those $100,000 prize money matches for $100,000 four-way collision. Julia, Chris, Penelope, and Anna Jay. Also, Juice Robinson will be taking on Brian Keith. Ace Austin taking on Ricochet. When I get home, I'm going to watch that one. I don't think I'll watch all of Collision, but I'm watching that match immediately when I get home tonight because I'm interested in that. Also, Tony Storm will have some comments, and we have Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong taking on Lee Johnson and Blake Christian tonight on Collision, which does go live in about 45 minutes for those of you who like collisions. All right, that's pretty much it for my notes here. I'll cruise over here to the chat and answer the super chats that I missed and see what else you guys have to say. I think for the new podcast starting in the fall, what I'm going to do is every single week I'm going to put up a community post or a post on the YouTube community tab there, and I'm going to hit the members with it first. Maybe like on Wednesday, give that a day for you guys to ask a question or anything you want me to specifically discuss. All the major stories we will, but if there's any little news tidbits that I normally don't talk about, you guys want to mention, I'm going to give the members an opportunity to ask those first. Then the next day, I'll put up a public post asking the same thing. And I'll have some of those prepared. That way, when we're done with the notes and the news that I wrote down, we'll get into your stories, your ideas, things like that, and just try to make it a more interactive type of a podcast, since we will have a lot more time to work with on Saturdays. And that's going to start probably in early September. So just a couple more weeks, we will get that new format started, probably right after Labor Day. And there's even a chance we might kick this off. Let me look at the calendar here. There's a chance that we're going to kick this off on my birthday. Saturday, September 6th. I wouldn't be surprised is the first day that we're going to be kicking off that new podcast, because I have a big birthday celebration with my family, but that's not until the next day. So I've got my birthday free on September 6th. That is probably going to be the day that we're going to do that. And that'll probably be the final Saturday podcast with all this shit behind me, because it's going to be broken down and I'm going to be getting ready for my move here shortly after that. So keep all of that in mind. Let's see, JJ Leg. I don't think I got that one from you earlier. Oh, yes, I did. I got that one from you. Okay, so I think I got that. Thank you for the 5, Ryan. There's one that I missed. The only major network right now that AEW can get one right now would be Fox. Everything else is WWE, NBC, Peacock, ESPN, AEW, CW, Netflix. Are you talking about AEW in terms of if they move networks? You're talking about like where their PLEs could land. So yeah, if AEW doesn't get picked back up by Warner Brothers Discovery in a couple of years, then maybe you're speculating where they could go. And that could be another strategy of WWE trying to put their shit on as many platforms as possible to limit the amount of options that AEW has. So if Warner Brothers Discovery doesn't want to re-up with them, where do they go? But I don't really see that as being too much of a concern. I think the AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery relationship will continue beyond this media rights deal unless something catastrophic happens. And I just don't see anything kind of catastrophic happening. I just don't. I think they're going to be here. I think WWE is going to be desperate to get rid of them, and they are not going to succeed. I also think WWE is going to obsess and be desperate to win an Emmy, and they're never going to get one. I don't want them to. It's like fucking the orange bag of diarrhea desperately wants that like Nobel Peace Prize for what? Being an idiot. And he's just going to obsess over it until he just forces it and gives it to himself. With WWE, I feel like it's the same thing. They want that Emmy so bad, and I just want them to not get it. I want them to obsess about it. I want them to mention it every chance they get. I want it to be 100% on their mind all the time, and then they never get it. That would just tickle me. I would love that. They want that Emmy so bad, don't they? Oh my God. Yeah, Julia, that's what. Yeah, we closed on Dynamite with that angle, but I'm like, you could have just done that in the ring, and then you could have fought and then brawled through the crowd, and you follow him back to the parking garage where MJF's hiding a tire iron behind a trash can, and he nails Hangman with it, and then you do the same. You close the show the same way. Just cutting back to the parking lot at the very end just came off a little weird to me. It's not bad or anything. It just came off a little odd. I would have maybe booked it in a different order or something. That's all. Zane G, when does the tape library make the move? I think the Peacock deal runs through 2026 or maybe until March of 2026, because I think the tape library and the PLEs were under the same deal with Peacock. I think that was a combo deal for both of them. I think. I'm not totally sure. I don't think the PLEs were one deal on Peacock and the library was another. I just don't know. I don't remember. I did look up that information a week or two ago, but now I've forgotten it. But I think that the deal runs out at the same time. And I think I heard March. So even the PLEs in moving to ESPN, that's not even going to be like January. I think that's going to be when the Peacock deal is up, which I believe is March. If anybody wants to look that up and confirm, feel free. But once the library is gone, basically I'm hoping that WWE has the new deal in place for the library, which I'm sure they will, by the time the Peacock deal expires. That way you can just jump over and it's right over there. And YouTube would be the easiest. It would be the easiest to navigate for the fans. They already have those vault channels already created. Imagine the subscribers and the boost they would get if they just talked about this shit on TV. You know, if Michael Cole was tuned in to WWE Vault's channel tonight, they're going to be streaming this or streaming that or one of your old-time favorites or anything like that. Just promote it, advertise it. Put all your stuff over there, you know, and then you can just make the ad revenue off of it, or maybe YouTube pays a rights deal to house it all over there, and then you get the ads on top of it. I don't know. But YouTube would be the best place for the tape library. That's where I'm hoping it lands. March 2026, that's what I thought. Remember when Jay Lambo would have paid for our WWE network? Boy, not anymore. We miss those days, huh? Jay Lambo, thank you, dude. Appreciate that $9.99. I hope you're doing well as well. Reportedly, the last PLE on Peacock is Survivor Series. Okay. So maybe the Peacock deal for the library is March. Maybe the PLEs are at the end of the year. I don't know. We'll find out. That ESPN app, or that DTC app, is about to launch in like 5 days. I'm not going to get it yet. I'm going to wait and see how it all goes. I'll probably wait till WWE content is on there, but I might buy it early for football purposes. I'm not sure. I'm really confused where all the sports is right now and stuff, so I'm trying to figure that out. Oh, man. Yeah, and there's a lot of problems with Raw's back catalog and stuff. Luckily for me, I don't give a shit about the Raws and stuff and SmackDowns because I have all the good years of Raw already on tape. I taped every single episode of Raw myself with my VCR from 1996 all the way to around 2002. So I don't need to stream the old Raw episodes. And I don't want to watch a Raw from 2008 or 2010. Fuck that. There's nothing from 2005 to present day that I would want to watch on Monday Night Raw. So I don't even care about those. And I have all the good ones, you know, in their entirety. So that doesn't concern me too much. What I want is the pay-per-view library, you know, for WCW. I have most of the WWE ones too, but the pay-per-view libraries for the promotions are really important to me. Also, a lot of those like other shows, you know, the Superstars and Saturday Night's Main Events, I like having all of those available. So hopefully, you know, if they put it all on Peacock, or I put it all on YouTube, I should say, next year, that it will be all there. It'll be all organized. You know, they might hold some things off. When the WWE Network started, I mean, they put everything on there. Every Benoit match. They even put Over the Edge 1999 on the network. And they were adamant about wanting to have their entire library accessible. It might not be that way. They might hold some stuff off if they put it up on YouTube. You know, they might not have every single show on there. We will see. But YouTube would make a great home for the WWE tape library, and that's where I hope it lands. We will see. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you for being with us here this afternoon on another Saturday podcast. I got to get out of here now and head to work, but we will be back tomorrow. Don't forget, we're going to be here watching SummerSlam 1997 Heart and Soul. Big 30-minute main event match with Bret Hart and The Undertaker. Shawn Michaels as the referee. They give away $1 million, or they attempt to give away $1 million on that show, apparently, to some feller who looks like me. We're going to be soaking all that in tomorrow night. So join us, and we will go to New Jersey, to the Meadowlands. Big crowd. I think 6-7 matches on the show, and we're going to be watching that tomorrow night. So you guys have a great rest of your Saturday evening. Thank you again for being here. Whatever you do for the rest of the night, I hope it's fun, especially if you're going to watch Triple Mania. And like I said, if anybody wants to send me updates on Triple Mania throughout the course of the night, please feel free to do that. I would welcome them and accept your updates. Ryan, I know you're really good at that. All the best to the rest of you, and I'll be catching you tomorrow night. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.